Millions of dollars getting poured into public schools starting next year. Sounds good, right? Wrong, because it's not going to education. You see, the government's forcing schools to get rid of junk food and offer healthy snacks instead. So your kids might be kissing those new books and their bonbons goodbye at the same time. To Elisabeth Meineke, who says that the government, that this overreach is just getting a little bit scary. Elisabeth, I know you have a few problems with this, but let's start with the overreach aspect.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that when you look at how far they wanted to take these new regulations, I mean, they considered regulating in-school fundraisers. Now, they stopped short of that. But I think, Charles, it's the same problem that you see in the education system itself. They had to try to take this one-size-fits-all approach, and you really can't do that. This needs localized attention. One lady who testified before Capitol Hill said, listen, we have healthy options for kids, but because of certain USDA standards that say, you can't have more than 2 slices of whole grain bread for 5 days a week, for sandwiches, that basically we can't offer those. So I think that, we see, again, this overreach is really kind of hurting our children, whereas if you take a more localized approach, you'll actually see things, be more effective and kids actually be healthier.
And the bottom line, this is coming from the federal government, but local governments have to implement it, and they have small budgets. We know they're suffering, continue to suffer. So to implement some of these things, I know you talked about the cost. I mean, it's a lot more expensive perhaps to offer some of this stuff, and something's got to go. I mean, something's got to go. Maybe the books, it may be something that really might have a longer lasting impact on a kid's life.
Yeah, well, one lady on Capitol Hill said that, for the schools that she represented, their food costs went from 37% of their revenue to 43% of the revenue as they tried to implement these new regulations. They spent over $43,000 trying to train their employees on these new nutrition standards. So my question is, wouldn't the government, instead of trying to micromanage what these kids are eating, wouldn't they be better served if they simply tried to create a stronger economic environment so that people's money stretched further, healthier foods became more affordable, and you could actually spend that money on children's education?
And let's face it, we're not talking about vending machines with salads in them. I mean, you'll have maybe Diet Coke instead of Coke, a granola bar instead of a Snickers, and at the end of the day, isn't that kind of just goofy?
I know. I mean, I don't know. Do these people not read labels? If you've read the label of a granola bar or a Diet Coke, that's still full of artificial things, and that's not necessarily going to be any healthier for your body. So you take out one unhealthy option and you put in another unhealthy option, and you expect the problem to go away. Well, that's not going to work. You
pat yourself on the back and you take a bow, and then you go on a world tour. This week, a lot of important decisions from the Supreme Court, but a lot of it seemed to have boiled down between a fight between the federal government and states' rights. And do you think this is another example of that, where local governments, where states aren't allowed to determine what's best for their kids, where they've got to take their marching orders from Washington, D.C.? Of course, we can argue about everything, but when it comes to our children, almost everyone would agree that's at the top of the pecking order, and the parents and the states and the local governments should have more of a role in the decision-making process than someone or a bureaucrat sitting in Washington, D.C.
Yeah, unfortunately, in some of these regulations, they did leave some of them up to the states, which I applaud. However, again, in the example that I used earlier, where they, one lady who said popular health alternatives at, their school, they couldn't implement them because it didn't meet, weekly nutrition standards implemented by the federal government. Well, that's ridiculous. I mean, they had one kid crying in their cafeteria because he couldn't have his peanut butter and jelly sandwich on his first day of school. There's absolutely no need for that. That's something that's much better handled at the local level. And I think that the federal government needs to go back and really consider, are they the best people for this job?
I got to be honest with you. When I don't get my peanut butter and jelly sandwich, you should see me. I throw a pretty good fit. That's the best snack out there. I'm telling you, that's the best lunch, peanut butter and jelly. All right.
I know, warm peanut butter and jelly. Who would have thought, right?
I've gotten healthier, though, because 10 years ago, I switched from white bread to whole wheat, but you got to go with it. Thanks a lot, Elisabeth.
Whole wheat still won't help you with this situation, so yeah, they're still coming after you.
All right, thanks a lot. We'll see you soon.